Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really, really fun to be here at Eastern Illinois. And I would have to say that my father-in-law, Jim Edgar, did actually come for you because he told me on the phone this morning that if I was speaking at Western or U of I might have been out of luck. But because I was at Eastern, he was coming over. So don't tell the other schools that. I want to tell you a little bit about my story and kind of how I got started with Global Girlfriend. I was not a business major. I was a social work student back in my undergrad. I went to Western Illinois and got my bachelor's degree in social work and worked in child welfare. And then I went to University of Illinois for my graduate degree, also in social work. I never really anticipated my social work degree leading to launching a business. It's not really what we talk about at social work school. But some things that, as you get jobs out of college, it's interesting how the things you do that you don't necessarily know will add up to something later really can impact you, can really build on your skills. So, as a social worker, I was working actually for the Denver Public Schools when I got the idea for Global Girlfriend. After Jim and Brenda left office here in Illinois, Brenda was asked to be on a board of the UN World Food Program. And so she got to go out and visit, specifically she went to Ethiopia to visit a program that the World Food Program was giving food assistance in. And inevitably, all the NGOs that she was visiting had some sort of women's enterprise project, right? So there were women making necklaces, baskets, purses, scarves, and she brought back souvenirs for my sister-in-law and I, which of course is lovely, right? When someone goes on a faraway trip, it's great to get gifts. But these were really impactful to me in that talking to her about her trip, she talked so much about, gosh, these poor women are so tenacious, right? They've made all these things, they're sitting out all day, and their market is aid workers, people like herself. How many times do you think Brenda went to Ethiopia? Well, she went one time. So that's not a super sustainable market, right? Here's a good customer who only shows up one time. So that kind of got me thinking about the idea. But like a lot of big ideas, have you ever had that, aha moment in the shower? You wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, I'm going to do whatever, and then you don't do it. That is exactly what I did. We had all these great conversations about, gosh, how could you help these women, and what could you do? And in the end, I really did nothing until a few years later. I was really impacted, as we all were, after 9/11. Who remembers where they were when 9/11 happened? It's a moment in all of our lives where you really take a step back and say, gosh, I actually had 3 little kids at the time, and the way it impacted me was, oh my gosh, what kind of world do my kids live in? What's going to happen for them if this is the kind of world we live in? If you remember, in the days right after, it felt to me like the world was kind of closing in. Like the United States was saying, oh, we're going to keep everybody out, and we need to close our borders, and we really need... instead of being more open, we were becoming more closed, and that wasn't something that felt good to me. And so I revisited this idea of a business of helping women in need, and that's kind of where the idea came back up. This is one of my favorite quotes. We are the ones we have been waiting for. I think too often we think, oh gosh, I can't do that. I certainly, at the time I had no business background whatsoever, except that my parents have a septic tank business that I had to work at as a kid sometimes. But the septic system business and fashion accessories really don't have a lot to do with each other. But I guess I probably learned from my family business a little bit about sticking to it, a little bit about how to go about building a market. And so I decided that I wanted to focus on women in particular. One of the main reasons is because women have it worst of all. As far as in world poverty, of the 1.3 billion people in the world living on less than $1 a day, women are 70%. So that means 900 million women live on less than $1 a day, get their kids by on less than $1 a day. I mean, what can you even get for $1 a day? I guess something off the value menu at McDonald's, but they don't have McDonald's close by. So that was what really compelled me. And the other thing is, if you look at what women do with their money, when you give women an opportunity, they don't just use it on themselves, right? They reinvest in their families. They reinvest in their children. They send their children to school, which ultimately makes for a better society. So think about that for a minute. If we're targeting women who make $1 a day, $2 a day, $4 a day, does that really make a big difference, right? If you go from $1 to $2 a day, what can you do with that? But what would you do if your income doubled tomorrow? How would that change your life? Take a vacation, buy a car, possibly go on the best spring break you've ever been on. I don't know what you would do with your money, but I know that what women do with their money is improve their households, improve the health care of their families, send their kids to school. So then the next question that people always ask me is, why business? And first I'll tell you how business, not on purpose. So when I started contacting one of the groups that Brenda had visited in Ethiopia, the Gemini Trust, who this is actually one of the original necklaces I bought from them, first I had to kind of convince them that I would be a good partner. Why would you want to partner with me? I didn't have very good reasons except the fact that I would buy their products. So I bought from about 3 different groups in 3 foreign countries, and then 3 groups in the United States. One in Chicago called the Enterprising Kitchen, and then there's another kind of a job training program in Denver called the Women's Bean Project. So they were some of my first groups. And I decided I'd have just a big home party. I didn't necessarily think, oh, this is going to be this great business. It's going to take off. I just thought I wanted to have an awareness-raising party. I wanted to let people know what these women's lives were like, what they were capable of, and bring people over and kind of, sell their products and raise awareness. So I had 100 women over to my house, and lo and behold, that really launched a business. I started with $2,000 investment from my family's tax refund, and after that evening, I had pretty much a year's calendar of events. Come to my house, come to my church, come to my event, and sell your products. So that's how we got started. The other thing I think that's really important about why business versus nonprofit, because I had come from a nonprofit background. To me, you figured out how to get people donation money, and you gave and you provided them services and programming. But in this case, what women really wanted was a way to sell their products. What they really needed was a market, and when you're trying to provide a market, that's a business, right? You want to be able to have them learn what the market wants. I love this picture of my daughter in Guatemala in this woman's stand. Obviously, I don't have a market here in the U.S. for huipil blouses. Not one of you is wearing a huipil blouse, though it's lovely. So we've turned that beautiful Guatemalan pattern into belts, because women wear belts, very colorful. This is an example of one of the groups that we've worked with that started as a nonprofit. It's Maridati Fabrics in Nairobi, and I like to show this example because they were started by the Anglican Church, who came in and gave them this beautiful building with a gorgeous sign and a lot of gorgeous, fabulous screen printing equipment. In fact, tons and tons of equipment. Trained 100 women how to screen print and provided no market. So they had the training, they had the tools, but they had no way to sell any goods to anyone. The women made a go of it, selling locally, making tablecloths for a restaurant called The Carnivore, which is a big Nairobi tourist stop. If you go on a safari, you should stop at The Carnivore restaurant. And that's how they were able to sort of get started and launch their business. But when we came to see them, the carnivore was their only customer, and they only had 6 women. So they had trained 100 women, but they only had enough employment for 6. So we worked on how can you take what they can already do and make it into something that women in the US would want to buy. We ended up making skirts, and we made scarves because I didn't have a big market for tablecloths. So I want to share with you just a few stories about some of the women that we work with. And I love to show this picture because this is from when I first got started, and I was too cheap to pay for cargo from the airport. So I would drive my minivan, I'd take all the seats out of it, drive to pick up my airport shipments, and shove them in. I would convince the woman from British Airways to help me. We'd unbox everything. But one of the things that the women we work with do so amazingly is they do what they can with what they have where they are. They take the resources they have available to them and make them into a product or a service. I think, before we talk about one of the groups that really inspires me, there's kind of 5 things to starting your own business and starting small. I think a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I want to start this big business. I want to have this big idea, and I want to go out there. I'm going to get investors, and they're going to back me, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to be super successful, and I can sell the company within 2 years, and it's going to be awesome. That is great if you can make that happen, but most people need to start small. And one of the best, it's kind of my 5 things for starting small. First of all, partner. We would not have been able to get as far as we've gotten if, A, we didn't have great artisan partners, but great sales partners. We work with Whole Foods, Target.com, and about 1,000 boutiques around the country to sell our products, and they have really championed the brand. Watch your pennies. We ended up buying a competitor, World of Good, who had gotten $4 million in venture funding to be able to launch their business. A similar business, a fair trade business. They did great branding, but they spent their money like it wasn't their own. You really have to be careful. And you have to persuade people, you know, what is your big idea? In this instance, it was really easy for me to tell people about the women, and their stories were kind of the persuasion for the product. Patience and persistence. I think persistence is kind of the key. I think it's easy for us to get started and be excited about a new idea, but then kind of to lose momentum. It takes a long time to get things going. My friend Josephine is a great example of how long it can take to get things going. She contacted me early on when she was starting her business, Jarova Craft. She lives in the Dandora slums in Nairobi, and her and 2 friends, Rose and Valerie, the name of their company is Jarova, using their initials, started cleaning offices, cleaning apartments, trying to do anything they could to raise enough money to buy 1 sewing machine and 1 market stall to get started on their products. That's her kids. The first product they made that they contacted me about was actually bags made out of garbage. They didn't have enough money when they started to actually buy fabric, buy supplies, so they took what they could take from their local community, which was plastic trash, washed it, cut it, reshaped it into handbags. Now, when we got sent these handbags, I didn't think it was a great idea. We didn't really think that this would sell, that people would like this product, but that didn't deter her from selling them locally and kind of growing their business. And she contacted me again about 5 years later after I had said, no, I don't think that product's going to work for us, because we had to be very, very careful with how we spent our capital. If I bought crocheted handbags, I couldn't buy something else, and so we really had to balance what we couldn't buy. But 5 years later, She persisted. She found a local market. She was selling to tourists, and they were able to build up their business enough so that they were able to meet kind of our market demands. This is one of my favorite groups, Free Set, and I think our little motto is start small, dream big, change lives. I think we all have a lot of big dreams, right? We come up with ideas, but the real key is putting that mission into motion, right? Going out, going after what you want, but then actually doing the hard work to get there. This group, Free Set, is really amazing to me. They're in Kolkata, India, or Calcutta, as a lot of people know it, and they're a sex trafficking rescue group. But they didn't set out to be a sex trafficking rescue group. A couple from New Zealand decided that they wanted to make a difference, and so they decided to take their 4 children and move to India, which is kind of crazy to begin with, but they rented a flat, sight unseen, got there in the middle of the night, woke up the next morning, went down to see who their neighbors were, and they had moved to the middle of the red light district. So they had moved to the largest center of brothels and trafficking and prostitution in all of Southeast Asia. Most people would have moved, right? At least across town, even if you wanted to stay in India. They decided that they wanted to see what they could do for the neighbors. You know, they decided that they had been placed there for a reason. And so after assessing the situation, talking to a lot of the women, learning about their backgrounds, many of them had been trafficked from Bangladesh, trafficked from Nepal as very young women, felt trapped. They wanted to start a nonprofit. So they wrote back home, they tried to collect donations. In the end, they found that that only got them so far, right? You'll give once or twice because they were your friends, but then your attention's not on that. So they decided they needed to come up with an economic solution. And they started a bag and t-shirt company called Free Set to actually set women free economically. These are just some pictures of some of the products they made, but now they employ over 300 women. They have rescued over 2,000 women from the sex trade, and I truly believe that they are on a path to change that neighborhood. It will take a lot. Obviously, trafficking is the second most profitable illicit business in the world, right below drug trafficking. So, but the power in what they're doing is really incredible, and I think it's so smart to have used something that we all purchase. I mean, how many people have on a t-shirt, right? We all wear t-shirts. We all have tote bags of some kind. So that group, I think, is doing amazing things. And then finally, one story I want to share with you is about how little money it really takes to change people's lives. I think we think that we have to make big changes to make a difference, right? We think if we don't do something big, it doesn't make a difference, but small changes can really impact people's lives, and small amounts of money can do it. This group is from the Congo. It's a group of 6 women who live in Goma. All of them have polio. This woman, Argentine, actually, contracted polio as a little girl, 3-year-old girl, and there has been a lot of fighting kind of when the Rwandan genocide ended. We all think the war ended, but it moved down south into Congo. So when she was little, her mom used to go and hide her out in the fields to keep her safe at night. So when the soldiers would come into their village, they wouldn't take her. When she got a little older, she was able to go to Goma and get surgery and met 5 other women like herself who had suffered from polio, came to Goma for surgery, and as part of their rehab treatment, they taught them to sew, thinking that they could sew their own clothes or that they could do some sort of projects. And the women decided to start their own business. They luckily met a nice aid worker who kind of helped them get going and helped them reach out to us. But when we placed our first order with them, it was for $12,000 worth of skirts, tote bags, and dresses. The way our fair trade model works is that when we place an order, we pay 50% up front. We never want women to be putting out their own resources for our beads, for our fabric. So we pay them 50% up front at the time we place an order, and then we pay the other 50% before we've even seen the product. As it ships to us, they're all paid. So when we got their goods, probably 3 days after we had sent them their final wire payment, I got an email saying, "This has made such a difference in our lives. With the first half payment, we bought your materials, but we were each also able to buy a plot of land outside of Goma. And with the second payment from your order, we started buying building materials, and our families are coming from all over the country because this is a safer place, safer housing." So with $12,000, 6 women's families' lives were changed. And that's how little it takes, and what a huge impact we have as consumers, right? So we all choose products every day. You go to the store every day and make those choices of what underwear you're gonna buy, what milk you're gonna buy. When we make sustainable choices, fair trade choices, organic choices, it really does impact people's lives in a big way. And I love to show this photo. This is from a group that we work with in Gulu, Uganda, because one of the most fun things about my travels is opening up my computer and showing the women, these are your products, this is you, that the whole world gets to see. So